The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Well, this week I bring you another gift, but it didn't fit in the bag. I'll leave it up to you to decide at the end of the sermon whether you think we need a paper cutter or not. But you may be asking, what does a paper cutter have to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ? And the answer is absolutely nothing. But it does have quite a bit to do with the healing of Naaman. Now, you're probably going, no it doesn't. Stick with me. Naaman was living the good life. Commander of an army, he had exceptional political power and capital. There was just one little problem. Naaman had an incurable skin disease that caused him pain and shame. But this is life, right? A mixed bag of bad and good, happy and tragic. And Naaman does what most of us do when we're faced with problems. He just lives with it. But the good news is that we don't actually have to just live with our struggles. So grace enters the story in the form of an outsider, a nameless young girl who is seemingly unimportant. She was a war captive who'd been enslaved to serve in the household of Naaman. But God was at work, even in the midst of this injustice. But this girl was a much better person than I am. I would probably go on, serves you right, you have leprosy. She's a much better person and instead says, "Mercy. I wish Naaman could be healed and would go to the prophet." In an unjust world, this young girl has a mercy. Now, perhaps Naaman was an exceptionally good master in the ancient world, or perhaps he helped rescue her from a situation even worse. We don't know. What we do know is that this young girl said to Naaman by means of his wife, "I wish Naaman would go to the prophet of Samaria because he could cure him." This girl wants Naaman to get better. How many of us want to get better? Wouldn't we all like our lives to run a little more smoothly? Wouldn't it be great if life was just a little bit easier? So Naaman, hearing this bit of advice, does what most of us do when he gets advice. He goes and he talks to someone else about it. He goes to the king of Aram, who perhaps he trusts a little more, and says, "So what do you think about this?" And the king says, "Yeah, seems like a good idea." So the king of Aram sends Naaman to the prophet. But now he's got to go by way of Israel, and he's got to bring 900 pounds of gold and silver and precious metal with him. Have you ever noticed the more people you talk to about a problem, the more expensive and complex the solution gets? It also gets a whole lot more time-consuming, and the original clarity of the solution is lost. Because by the time Naaman actually gets to the king of Israel. The message now is, I present my servant Naaman, heal him. And the king of Israel, justifiably so, freaks out. Because the leader, the king of Aram, this foreign country, has sent the head of his army, the most powerful army, to come to his court and is saying, heal him. The king's going, am I God? I can't do that. But if I say no, I could start a war. Luckily, the prophet Elisha comes into the story and says, chill, I got this. It's a very modern translation. But the king does what so many of us do when we're faced with problems. When we feel like we're facing the impossible, or we're being asked too much of us, we get defensive. I can't do that. Who are you to ask that of me? And we begin blaming the person in need of help. Have you experienced this? You know, we're really afraid of letting people down or of failing them. And we begin to question their motives and to bluster to protect ourselves. But Elisha says it's going to be okay. And he cuts through the pomp and the ceremony and all 900 pounds of silver and gold and says, you know, Naaman, I need you to go take a bath. Go wash in the river. And Naaman gets mad. I came all this way, lugging all of these gifts for this? A bath in your crummy river? I got rivers at home. I could have saved this whole trip. You see, when we've built up a problem to an insurmountable magnitude, we expect a complex and befitting solution. But when we take stock and really listen and are obedient, then we find restoration, healing, and transformation. Naaman is healed, and he's so happy about it. He says, let me pay you. And this is how you know Elisha's a good guy. He says, no. Grace is a gift, freely given. There's nothing needed in return. So what do we as a church have to learn from this story? And what, for the love of all of that, does this have to do with the paper cutter? Well, sometimes like Naaman, we ignore our problems. We assume they're insolvable, or we just stop seeing them. They've just become part of the landscape. Or we've talked to a lot of people about them, and we're very convinced that they're too expensive or time-consuming to solve. Or the solutions that have already been proposed, like Naaman, well, they just won't work. And I wonder, how often are we like Naaman? Do we disdain or discount the Lord's provision for us because it doesn't seem special enough? I've learned in my life it is a greater act of faith to trust in the ordinary means of grace, the everyday solutions, rather than just trusting in the extraordinary miracles of life. Now, the lepers we heard this morning are told by Jesus, go, present yourselves to the priests. Oh, thank you very much, Jesus. I'm coming to you with my problems and my needs, and you're saying, go take a walk. But we hear that the lepers went. They obeyed, and they found healing in the journey, on the way in their faithfulness. You see, transformation is a journey worked out in steps of obedience. So in my first week here, I have to tell you, I've discovered an ancient relic.
Just one?
A bizarre and unwieldy tool. A paper cutter that I was informed by Carol, no one knows my paper cutter like I do. She gave me permission to talk about it. It cuts no more than 3 sheets of paper at a time, and you must lift the handle, bring it up, in, down, quickly and firmly. can tell you I've tried, and I can't make it work. But like the young girl in the story today, I think I have a solution. This problem is not unsolvable, and I can see it, and it's not really even that expensive. And you know what? I didn't even have to go to Israel to get it. So we have a new paper cutter. I'm going to leave it in the box with the receipt until Carol tells me it's okay. Because the thing about solving problems is it's important to talk to the people who it most affects and get their permission and their blessing. So we have a new paper cutter, but I hope we have more than that. I hope from the oldest to the youngest of us, from the powerful to the plain, we have a willingness to see our blemishes and not just see them as incurable or just part of the landscape. And once we see them, let's do more than just talk about them. Let's do something. If the problem you see is a sin within yourself or a spiritual wound, then come and present yourself to a priest, as Jesus said. If it's a physical ailment, come present yourself for healing, to be prayed over and anointed with holy oil. And if it's a problem within the church that makes the life and work of ministry harder, let's solve it. Because believe it or not, this call that you've extended to me for transformation was already made possible by Jesus Christ, who transformed death into life and is making all things new. But sometimes the renewal comes through ordinary means, like a bath in the river, a trip to your priest, or a trip to Staples.